It's finally stopped raining at last. It's 5 days later. Time to get on again. So the next panel to do is here at the bow. I have a slight problem with length, so this is going to require a little triangular piece either side. I think we can get around that. I think that's going to be okay. I'll turn it into a feature. That process was quite fiddly, and I've just realised that this is the port side even though it says the starboard side. Yeah. I'm going to repeat the process on the actual starboard side there, and then we'll think about trimming this line at the gunnels. I kind of want it to be higher at the prow, but we'll see. So that's the other side in place. It's a bit embarrassing.
Are you videoing it all the way through, are you?
Yeah, I've got no idea how this episode is going to pan out because I was going to be filling in those bow panels, but I think that in order for it to be strong enough to turn, I'm going to have to do the filleting in the sections that I've already got stitched up. So I'm going to glue the epoxy fillets in place now, and then we'll turn it over. So you see here I've just started filleting with the epoxy. I've just mainly done this side here. A bit rough and ready at this stage. It's the first time I've ever done that, but we'll move on to this side. I'll mix up some more and we'll do this side next. And I think I need a wider fillet in that edge that's just held together with the zip ties at the moment. So that's both sides filleted with the rather amateurish technique. No. Is this boring to you? I'm sorry. So time to mix up some more filler. Or should I just use some silicone filler? Oh, it's tempting. No, let's do it properly. Oh, damn it. I've now filleted what I can and I've filled the holes for the cable ties. Just a quick observation, but I've just peeled off some of the tape here, and this has worked really well, the epoxy filling. Do that. Right, so it's back up on the stands this way up so I can apply these bow panels. It is really heavy. I'm a bit worried about how I'm actually going to get it onto the car roof, because by the time I've added the seats in, or at least the seat bases, and then glassed and epoxied the whole hull, added things like the row lock brackets, pintles and gudgeons, etc, etc, you know, all the deck fastenings, etc. It's gonna be quite heavy. And I think that given the solidity of the aft frames and things like the dagwood trunk and this bow or stem piece, I think that it was obvious that it was going to get a bit heavy. It's going to have nice characteristics in the water because it's going to be quite stable. You know, it's going to sit in the water quite well. Waves aren't going to be bashing it, you know, flopping it around. So I think it's going to have the sea keeping or river keeping characteristics that I want it to have, but transporting it might be a bit of an issue, and we'll come to that when we come to it. But I mean, it won't be so heavy that it'll exceed the rating for the roof rack. It's just a matter of how it's going to be lifted. So here I'm just using the robe saw to go down this strip, trim this off, and then I'll plane it up so it's smooth. So I've just glued in the two bow panels. They need to be filleted from the inside with epoxy, and then it should be good to go. Now, the eagle-eyed amongst you might have noticed that the bow section is coming up higher than the frames and indeed the stem piece. Now, the main reason for this is because of the differences between these two sections here where they're joined. That obviously is just the machined cut from the factory. I had intended at some point that I would take this down to a certain level undetermined. You can see here that I've actually put a string across where I think the line should go, so that would be a matter of cutting. Now, there was a bit of back and forth in my head because I was wondering whether the raised angle of this, the sweep of the bow, would essentially improve the seakeeping abilities, or at least reduce the amount of splash that I was going to get from waves. Now, while that's true, it would also complicate matters because I would have to make a very sturdy separate piece at the bow here, probably out of a hardwood, and that would have added a significant amount of time to the build, and I'm at a point where I want to be getting on to to putting glass on the bottom of the hull and getting things watertight. And mainly because we've got lots of rain incoming, and I don't want to have to be faffing with the tarpaulins all the time. So what I'm going to do is to chop this off at this line, a bit reluctantly, but I think that's the most sensible thing to do right now. The bow panels have now been cut to size, and I'm just going to create a couple of infill panels for the bowmost bit of the bow and then chop that off so that's smooth. Around the gunnels there's going to be a plank that's going to hopefully sort of smooth things out and add a bit of a chunky handrail, because this is going to be too inflexible otherwise, and it'll also add in some rigidity to the hull at this point. I thought I'd share this with you though. When I was putting this panel in here, or down the lower one, the convex curve that I needed to create in order to bend from here down to the hull meant that the stitching glue wasn't working particularly well, so I had to put something into so essentially what I did is I drilled this bolt in, and that bolt acted as a stop against the wood so it would bend to the right place. So essentially I made kind of a jig. Anyway, the great thing about this is that the epoxy has now cured, and I was thinking, oh, it's going to be stuck, and this is amazing. It's formed essentially a thread around the thread of the bolt, so all I have to do is unbolt the bolt. Here it comes. I don't know why that pleases me so much, but something that was basically a bodge has actually turned out to be quite a useful technique. I like it. Yeah. So here I've tacked in some little bits of ply to complete the bow. And as you can see, the boat is now upturned again. It's a bit easier this time because it was a bit less wobbly, and I'm going to start fairing in. So I've just been over the boat and sanded everything down, and I think the next stage is to use some chopped strand to fair in, build up some of the low spots, and then possibly a filler layer in epoxy, or the polyester resin actually, because I've got the chopped strand. Polyester resin is better for chopped strand because it mixes with the powder and integrates so that so the polyester resin wets out the chopped strand more effectively. So I'm just applying some to the plywood so that none gets lost to the plywood through the matting as it's applied. I might only have a working time of about 20 minutes. You know, I live in the countryside and you wouldn't know, given the amount of noise going on, sirens. I don't really enjoy doing this, but well, it's sort of fun, but it's very high pressure because you've got to act really fast. Yeah. I've got no idea why this one's white. Did I not add enough catalyst? So I've been over and I've put the polyester resin on as much as I can when I've run out of resin, so I've got to wait till the morning and hope that I can find some in town tomorrow morning. That means you probably needed 5 litres of polyester resin to do this, so that's another thing that's bumped up the cost, probably by another sort of £15–20. Another day, another dawn. It's the day after. I've purchased more resin from a local chandlery shop, and I've put in essentially the rest of the fiberglass tape strips around the joins. I've also put a double strength section in here, so we've got the whole fiberglass. One of the next jobs is going to be to turn the boat over, and I'm going to be adding a strip, a sort of gunnel rail all around the edge of the boat. It's going to give me something to hold on to, it's going to reduce the flexibility in these parts, and it's going to give me something that I can actually attach fixings to when the boat's in the water, things like row locks and all locks. I'm sorry I couldn't film making the gunnel rail here, but the mount for the camera fell off the roof of the car and broke the microphone shop mount, and I was in the middle of something and it just I've got another one in the post. So anyway, quite promisingly you can start to see the final shape of the boat emerging around the gunnels. Let's just do a bit of a walk around. It is only very loosely scarfed in at the moment, and I'm just going to have to fill in using some wood filler. It's a very rough cut at the moment, but that will all be planed down smooth, so it's all at the same width, and so it all lines up neatly. So that's lots done today, from finishing the GRP to making the gunnel rail. So from Heidi and I, it's time to say goodbye.